day 2. We're going to finish up day 2 and day 3. This trial is all about the drama. I'm telling you, so much drama. You're going to hear all about it today. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name's Rebecca. I'm your host. This is Crafting and Crime Daily. Today I'm working on my floral Legos. So I'm trying. This is what I got done so far. This is gonna look like this when I get done putting all the little teeny weeny. Hold on. As soon as I get this done, my sister's gonna arrange it all because I don't do flowers arranging anyway. All these little itty bitty pieces. Isn't that colorful? Yeah. All right. Since I can't do it and talk at the same time, you'll just have to trust me on that. All right. So where we left off was the lawyer for Doug Benefield, the family law lawyer that the murder victim, hired initially to do this letter to Ashley, asking him to be involved in the birth. So it goes on from there. Ashley files for a restraining order. He files for visitation, blah, 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 blah. So then we get to cross-examination. And this defense attorney, oh my God, he is a piece of work. And the judge is not having it. He's not having it. He's not playing. So what he's trying to do with this woman is he asked her, are you aware of your ethical obligations with the bar? And which, that's insinuating that, she's put her license at risk. What happened was when Ashley filed for the restraining order, she put some allegations in there. And one of the things you have to do as the responding attorney is you have to admit or deny the allegations. So she denied the allegations. Well, later on, Doug Benefield is at a deposition and he admits to this behavior. He admits, I fired a shot into the ceiling. I hit the dog. He admits all that. So this lawyer is insinuating that she should have gone back and changed it to an admission. I don't know. Anyway, the judge had to let everybody out of the courtroom. All the jurors had to be excused from the courtroom while they argued this one. And the state was arguing that this is not proper impeachment. And the judge agreed, after hearing both sides go back and forth, he agreed. It's not proper impeachment. You just don't do that. Yeah. You know how the rules of civil procedure work, and we know how answers work and admissions. And so then the lawyer files a motion for mistrial because you don't like me. No, basically. Because his motion for mistrial is because you keep ruling against me. And you found her guilty in the prior proceedings. He said, you clearly found her guilty in the stand your ground hearing. And he might have, but that's a whole separate thing. Anyway, so motion for mistrial was denied, of course. Then there's more drama to come. Trust me, more drama. So then this defense attorney, now this lawyer's still on the stand. He asks this lawyer, is it your belief that the victim murdered Doug Benefield to prevent the psychological reports from coming out? And she goes, oh, I have no doubt about that. I don't think that was the answer he was expecting. Then he says she's lying when she says there was a hearing for an injunction only. So he's trying to claim that there was, he got some emails between this lawyer and the judge's clerk, the judge that was presiding over this family case. And they're going back and forth. And he's trying to get her to say that the hearing that was scheduled for the 30th, in which the day that these reports were going to come out, 3 days after the murder, that the psychological reports were going to be released. And he's trying to get her to say, no, that's not, the only thing that was supposed to happen today was the judge was only going to hear the motion on the restraining order, not the psychological reports. And she's like, no, that's not true. You're taking this out of context. You didn't read that properly. So now the defense attorney, he wants to call the judge's clerk as a witness, and the judge is like, no, we're not doing that. We're not calling the judge's clerk. She's like, absolutely, that report was coming out on the 30th. Then she's off the stand. Thank goodness. So then the next witness is a detective in the domestic violence division of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. Now, at this point in time in history, 2020, they were sharing an office with the detectives that worked child crimes and members of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office that worked for Department of Children and Families. They were all shared an office. So this, and this is relevant later on. So Ashley filed a report, domestic violence report on December 17th, stating that her husband violated she had gotten a restraining order in South Carolina in November. And so the day that the judge signed the order for the restraining order in South Carolina, that same day, Doug mails her a package. Now, from some of the testimony, I thought maybe it was a birthday present. And then at one point, the defense attorney asked him, did you turn that over to the hazmat team? And the judge goes, did you say hazmat? And he's like, yeah, hazmat team. So I don't know what was in this package, but I think it was just a birthday present. I don't know. So she wanted him arrested for violating the restraining order. So this detective said for the next several months, she called him at least 2 to 3 times a week. There were, he said, between 30 and 40 phone calls that she made to him. When are you going to arrest him? When are you going to arrest him? And he kept telling her, no, I'm not arresting him. We're still investigating. And he did interview Doug, and he asked Doug, if you can find me the receipt for this, where you mailed this package. And apparently he did find the receipt. He was able to determine that the package was mailed before Doug was aware that the order had been signed. So, and this defense attorney's argument was, but Doug was aware that there was going to be a restraining order in place because the judge had made a ruling in the hearing prior to that order being signed. But this detective said, no, it's not. This restraining order doesn't go into effect until the order is signed. It doesn't matter what he was aware of. So what he did was he turfed it. He said, what we can do with our complaints is we can either act on them, we can, arrest the person, or we can refer it to the state attorney's office. He refers it to the state attorney's office. She keeps calling him. So at one day she calls him, and she wants to know, she tells him she's not happy that Doug hasn't been arrested. And she wants him to, she tells him there's a court hearing coming up on this family law thing, and I want you to come to the court and arrest him in front of the judge. And he's like, I'm not doing that. No, I don't do that. And she's like, you will do that, or I want to know the reason why. And he's like, I'm not doing that. And so she got really irate with him during this phone call. And some of the detectives that were around him overheard this. So, and there's another detective that's going to testify later on that he heard this phone call. He said it was like a 20 to 30 minute phone call where she's just going on and on. She starts crying, and then she gets, he said it was a very dramatic cry. And she said to him, if the judge sees you arrest him, it'll help me to keep my baby. He says, I'm not doing that. And he didn't do that, obviously. And then she let out, he says, I can't recreate it. It was a screech. That's the only way I can describe it. It was a screech. I will do whatever I have to do to keep my baby. You asshole. Yeah. And the shanks up. Okay. Next witness. So this is a guy named Detective Moreland. No relationship to Judge Moreland, who was the judge on the family law case. So he works in that same office, but he works in the Crimes Against Children division. And he is the one that overheard the call that was referenced. But he can't say anything that he heard because it's hearsay. But he just said, yes, I overheard that phone call. And he said, oh, yes, I was familiar with Ashley Benefield. So the state next goes through all of the allegations that this man received regarding Doug Benefield, alleging sexual and physical abuse of Emerson Caney, I think is what they're calling her last name. And I thought, what? That's her last name, Caney? So we find out later on that Ashley wanted her daughter or son, I think it's a daughter, wanted her to have her father's or her grandfather's last name. So that's what she did. That's what she put on the birth certificate. Can you do that? Just put any old last name on the birth certificate? I guess. I don't know. I've never had that question come up in my law career, whether you could put any old name on the birth certificate. But anyway, so the first complaint came from Ashley in 2019, December of 2019. This is the South Carolina restraining order is in November. In December, Ashley's trying to get this other guy to arrest her husband for violating the restraining order. She's trying to get this guy, this detective, to arrest him for sexual abuse of Emerson. Now, they don't go into any details. Then there was another allegation made on March 21st of Doug physically abusing the child. He said, who at the time was 2 years old. Then March 23rd, 2 days later, there was another physical abuse allegation. So he investigated those two together. And then April 5th and April 27th, there were two more allegations of physical abuse by Doug Benefield against the child, Emerson. And he investigated those together. As a result of his investigation of these 5 allegations, he said no charges were ever filed. Meaning they didn't find anything. And then the state brought out, because the defense attorney was asking him who made these reports. And he says, they're anonymous. I don't know who makes the reports. I don't get that information about who makes the reports. So then the state brought out, what is a mandatory reporter? Certain people, if they hear someone say a child has been abused, they have to report it. So leaving that impression in my mind and in the mind of the juries that some of these might have been people that Ashley, doctors or nurses that she told, hey, Doug's physically abusing my child, and then they had to report it. So I think it all goes back to Ashley, and nothing came of it. So, but as a result of all of these reports, Ashley and Doug were asked by the Department of Children and Families and this Child Crimes Division to get psychological reports, get a psychological exam. And they agreed to it. So, yeah, interesting. Oh, there's plenty more. way more. Okay. Next person on this stand was a clinical psychologist, Dr. Browder. And he said he is part of the multidisciplinary team that DCF has. So what they do is they'll have what they call a staffing on certain cases. And they put they get this whole multidisciplinary team together, and they have this staffing, and then they decide, what are we going to do? And this is, at this point, he was hired, because he's part of this multidisciplinary team, he was hired to conduct this psychological evaluation of Doug and Ashley. So he said this occurred over several months over the summer of 2020. And he observed them together. He observed them apart. He observed them exchanging the child. Sometimes he would be interviewing one and the other would come for an interview and they would exchange the child. He observed each one of them separately with the child, together with the child. So there was a lot of different situations that he talked to them. And he said, Ashley Benefield's demeanor when she was not with Doug was very, very different. Yeah. That Ashley made it clear to him that they were not moving together. Yeah. And then she said to him one time that she was running out of time. And she said, who's going to help Emerson? She said, I need to get this over with, that her life was in shambles and she wanted to move on with her life. But he says, throughout these evaluations, she kept seeing Doug. They would go to movies together, not with the child, they were dating. They would go to movies. She would go over his apartment. They'd go swimming. Yeah. But when they were together, they were moving to this other state, Maryland. Why was she leading him on? So she told him, she showed up at his office after the report had been submitted and wanted a copy of it. And he's like, no, I'm not allowed to give you a copy. It's, I was hired by DCF and that report goes to them. If you want it, you're going to have to go through your attorney to get this thing. So she told him that I don't know if it was during the interviews or that day, that her plan was to go to Maryland, establish residency, which means you have to live there for 6 months. After you've established residency by living there for 6 months, she could get full custody and then take matters into her own hands. And this didn't come out in front of the jury, or did it? I don't know. Where did I learn this? Maybe it was opening statements. I don't know. I don't think the jury knows this, but Doug's lawyer warned him that this whole move to Maryland, she's setting you up. Don't buy it. She's setting you up. His attorney was right. She was setting him up. So then this psychologist, he issues a 27-page report on Ashley Benefield and a 25-page report on Doug, and he turned those over on September 14th. Now, those were supposed to be revealed in court on the 30th. He said she never complained of any abuse by Doug, that her only concern during the interviews was for Emerson. And he admitted, yes, she was going along with him to appease him. So he said that she never had any violent outbursts. So, okay. Then we have the next witness is Dr. Quintella, who's he's a mental health counselor. I don't know that he's a psychologist, but he's a mental health counselor. Happy guy, very happy. You're going to see this. And the idea by going to see him was trauma resolution. That's his specialty. And his goal for these two was to reunify them by moving. They were going to reunify by moving to Maryland. But he said Ashley Benefield was very different when she was apart from Doug. that she was questioning whether or not she really wanted to be with him or not. She was worried about what this psychological report said. These are things that she expressed to him. Their last visit with this man was on Friday morning, the 25th. Doug is murdered on Sunday, and that hearing was scheduled for Wednesday. And he says, as of that morning, the 25th, they still had plans to go to Maryland together. So then cross-examination starts. And I had to watch this video several times to understand what happened. So let me see if I can set this up for you. This mental health counselor, Dr. Quintella, he's on the stand, and he's asked a question by the defense attorney, and he starts to talk about the allegations that Ashley was making. I started to say Crashly. Ashley was making. And there was an objection, and then you can see him physically like take a deep breath, which is what you need to do when you need to like calm down, relax, get rid of some of your anxiety. And the defense attorney goes, "Oh, you have no idea." And they kind of laugh. And the judge immediately sends the jury out and admonishes this lawyer. So after you watch this, if you have any questions about what happened there, I think one of the things was this judge is getting really frustrated with this defense attorney. So take a look at this. Yeah.
Cross.
Afternoon, Dr. Quintel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. So tell us why, when you met with them, Ashley was different when she was alone and when she was together with Doug in meeting with you.
So Ashley presented that she was concerned about Doug. There was prior acts of violence, shooting a gun, no.
Sustained.
Not going to get into this.
Okay, without. Yeah. Oh, you have no idea. Without.
Why don't you go ahead, excuse me, Deputy, would you please go ahead and take the jury out? Remember, please don't begin your deliberations. You can use your phones, but don't talk with anybody outside of the jury. And don't do any research on the people, places, things, or legal topics you've heard anything about. Dr. Quintel, I'm going to excuse you to the hall room.
Okay. Take my stuff with me.
Yes, sir. The rule of sequestration has been invoked.
I don't even know what that means.
That's I'm going to.
Okay, sorry.
What that means, you can all have a seat. What that means, sir, is that you're not to discuss your testimony or the questions that have been asked of you here in the courtroom. It also means that you can't discuss other witnesses' testimony, and that's with anybody or the questions they were asked. That's with the attorneys, other parties, witnesses. It doesn't matter. You can't discuss anything that's gone on inside the courtroom when you've been in here. Also, that I understand this may be online, and you are not to watch anything online until you're released from your subpoena or the jury has been released from its duties.
Okay.
All right, so
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. This way. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, is there anything you'd like to share before I begin speaking?
I think I'm about to catch a whooping. I'm not quite sure why, but go ahead.
I believe that you expressed you're a veteran of over 400 jury trials.
Yes, sir.
This is all rhetorical. You can feel free to answer or not answer. My assumption is that you're familiar with trial process and procedure. that you're familiar with, as you had mentioned earlier, the rules of professional conduct and decorum. I'm also sure that you realize that if this court makes rulings that you disagree with, whether it's a passing disagreement or a fundamental disagreement with a ruling, I would imagine you're aware of the fact that if ultimately your client is convicted, either you or another attorney or a public defender, if she's indigent, will have every right to appeal to the Second District Court of Appeal every decision I've made. From the minute I sat down in this division and started making decisions in this case, all the way through the end of the case. I also would imagine that I'm not the first judge that has made rulings that you disagree with. I would imagine I'm not the first judge that you have looked at up here and said, where in the world did he or she get that from? I would hope that you have not engaged in the conduct like you just did. It was inappropriate. It was unprofessional. We're going to take just a few minutes break. I have this position and I understand criticism. And I expect that. I have often said that I think my job early on as a youth sports referee and umpire prepared me well for the criticism that comes with the job. However, those sorts of side comments are just, they're not appropriate. And I would caution you, sir, not to do that again. That's extrajudicial matters that have nothing to do with the case or the consideration of the jury. All right, so we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be back.
Yeah. He is not having it, this guy. He does not like this guy. And I think this guy knows it. He's like, I'm about to get a whooping. Yes, you are. Oh my gosh. So this guy goes on to say that Ashley was confused about, or he was confused. The doctor was confused about why Doug, and he mentions this to Doug. Why do you want a relationship with Ashley? She disparages you all the time. And that's where his testimony ended. Yeah. That's where they ended for the day. So that's where the testimony ended. So then this morning, day 3 started. Ashley comes in. She's got her hair down. She's got another cardigan on. This one's like a brown one. You know, she went to the cardigan store. I have a feeling she was, bought out Ann Taylor's cardigans, long sleeve cardigans every day. She looks very demure. No, very plain makeup, just enough to like cover the blemishes, and like no colorful eyeshadow, nothing, just plain neutral makeup. Then the jury is not brought in right away. We get to hear all this drama that happened after court ended yesterday. So apparently the judge, after court ended on day 2, gets a letter from a lawyer in a law firm in West Palm Beach, who is representing a reporter who apparently here's what happened. The jurors all go to lunch. This is Bradenton. It is a small town. They're downtown Bradenton. There's probably 3-4 restaurants down there. So it's limited as to where they can go. So this juror, I don't know if he was with other jurors, but he goes to this restaurant for lunch. And on the TV, they were playing commentary about this trial. They probably had court TV turned on, or Law and Crime. Probably court TV, I would imagine. So after a little bit of argument about what to do about this, they bring in each juror one at a time. And they said it was a male juror, but they both wanted everybody polled individually about whether or not this occurred. And after all this comes out, after all this interviewing of each juror, and it was hard to hear because the jurors aren't mic'd, so what finally happens is that we find out that the juror asked the restaurant to shut off the TV. So he did the right thing. So nothing really came of that. But then we also had a deputy that came to the judge, one of the court deputies, that said someone had told him. So this judge is like, this is hearsay within hearsay. Like, someone told someone who told me that Eva Benefield, Doug's daughter, TikTok Eva, was giving a reporter an interview. And she has not been released from her subpoena. She's being allowed, she gave some testimony. My thinking is she'll be brought back. The plan is to bring her back on rebuttal to rebut anything that Ashley may say during her testimony, should she testify. We don't know yet if she's going to testify. So Eva's in the courtroom. And then once they realize that they're arguing about someone who's sitting in the courtroom, he says, "Oh, Eva, are you here? You need to step out." So she steps out. They continue the argument, and they bring her in. Well, they don't bring her in. They each side makes a little bit of an argument because the defense says, "I need a hearing. I want a hearing." So the judge says, "Okay, we're going to have a hearing." And they both make argument, and then the judge says, are you guys done? And they're like, yeah. And the judge says, well, all I have, he says, I thought you guys were going to offer some evidence. You asked me for a hearing. I thought we were going to hear testimony, evidence. All I have is hearsay upon hearsay, and I can't make a ruling based upon that. So the defense attorney is like, oh, wait, she said, can we bring her in? And he's like, you had your chance. But he ultimately lets him come in. So Eva comes in, takes the stand, and apparently she understood the admonishment that the judge gave her to mean that she couldn't talk about her testimony or any of the testimony of the trial. So what was she talking about with this reporter? Well, she said that she got really emotional about some of the testimony because, her dad's been murdered, and she leaves the courtroom, goes out into the hallway, and she's upset. And so this reporter was asking about her emotional state and something else. I don't remember. It was benign. She wasn't talking about the testimony. But then the defense attorney starts going in. So you do social media? Yes. You post on TikTok? Yes. Anywhere else? No, just TikTok. How many videos have you posted since your testimony? 3. Then he wants to do you have them on your phone right now? Can I see? And the judge is like, wait a minute. We're just talking, this hearing is about her talking to a reporter in the hallway. It's not about, we're not going on a fishing expedition into her social media. He goes, you've got 3 people over here at your table that can look at her TikTok later on. If you have a problem with it, we'll bring it up then. So that's it. He tells her again, you can't talk about the case, blah, 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 blah. Go sit down. Defense attorney, sit down. Yeah. Craziness. Absolute craziness. All right. So we finally get to the witnesses on day 3. And the first witness is, in fact, this is the only witness we hear from before lunch. And I believe after this witness, the state has 2 more witnesses, and then they're going to rest their case. So the state may be done with their case by the end of today, and then the defense will probably have to make a decision tomorrow about whether or not Ashley Benefield is going to testify. So this guy, he's with the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, and his job is cell phone extraction. He extracted the cell phones of Doug and Ashley Benefield, and he had put on through the Celebrate program, he had a Excel spreadsheet of all the text messages that went on between Ashley and Doug between September 20th and the day he was murdered, September 27th. And I gotta tell you, good morning, good night. He was sending her Bible verses. She was, sending little emojis, like back and forth all day long. They're texting. I'm coming over. They're clearly planning to move. He's picking up boxes for her. He's coming over every day. They're planning out to load the truck up. They're talking about putting some stuff in storage when they get to Maryland. How do we want to do this? Do we want to bring car? Like, they're talking all about this move. But there's one morning where Doug wakes up, and listen to what his text message says. Now,
from Doug says good morning with emojis. And then also an additional message at 9:28 that says, got an email from Stephanie after she talked to Faith. Since order to mediate will meet for 1 hour tomorrow. To stop court next week, you dismissed injunction. We signed joint stipulation to dismiss dissolutions and hold until Moreland signs. Order for report. As soon as she signs order, we file dismissal, and we're done. Looks like a praying hands emoji and a heart. And then there's an additional message after that. And we have joint session with Dr. Q Friday to wrap up our adventure in Florida, FL, and leave with understanding of double knots and red-blue inversion. After that, there's an action by Ashley Christina that said, loved an image. And it continues with a good morning. And there's an emphasis by Doug of good morning. Ashley Christina responds, oh, okay, I'll reach out to Faith to follow up on all the above with a thumbs up. Doug takes an action about and liking that previous image, and then says, and we're done. Again, praying hands emoji. And also responds, and all in first 10 days of Jewish New Year, LOL.
Now, this says to me that she was leading him on about them being together in Maryland. Because it says to me that she's telling him, oh yeah, we're in that hearing Thursday or Wednesday, everything's going to be dismissed. I'm going to agree to everything being dismissed. We're going to sign something and everything will be hunky-dory, and then they'll go to Maryland and start living there, close the Florida chapter and start living in Maryland. This is what she has him thinking. Plans to dismiss everything. What? Yeah. And then the last text message is that he's arrived on the 27th to her home. I'm out front. And that's the last text message between the two of them. But there were a lot of text messages between them. Then the defense, the state, when they continued, they wanted to show a video. There was a lot of sidebar going on about whether this video should be shown or not. I'm not sure the relevance, except to show that this is like a happy family. It looks like they're in Panera. There's a lot of mention of Panera. They apparently really liked Panera. She's there. Mom's there. Emerson is there. He's there. And he's doing a video because they're playing some kind of quiz game where he gives them clues and they have to guess what the answer is. And just to show how they are like very happy. And that video was on the 20th, 7 days, 1 week before this all goes down. Watch this video.
Oh, you don't have the sheet in front of you.
No.
Sorry.
Thank you. 925 is an attachment from Doug to Ashley Christina.
I'm gonna play that attachment at this time.
How do you know what it's doing? I think it's giving you clues that I gotta guess.
Is it like with words? I'd say not safe.
Get real?
Second word.
Real?
Working mother, not a working mother.
Working mother, not a working mother?
Not a working mother. I live in a
Slum.
people literally like right.
Oh no, it's running out of time.
I live in
House.
a
Real house. White.
Put together.
Housewives of.
No,
Oh, real. Oh.
Okay, thank you.
She's playing that this is one big happy family, and everything was going to come crashing down on Wednesday because she was not. That psychological report was going to come out where she's saying she don't want to be with him. Yeah, all hell was going to break loose on Wednesday. So then they went sidebar about something else. And this sidebar lasted a good long time, and to the point where the judge says, we're done. Everybody go to lunch. We'll come back after lunch and finish this guy's testimony, this cell phone analysis person's testimony. And then hopefully hear those last two witnesses after lunch. So I will bring you all of that tomorrow. Yeah. So have a great day, everybody. And I'll see you in the next recap video. Take care.